Today we're going to be talking about color inside of Adobe Illustrator, what you can do with it and where you can find it, as well as the gradients that come with it. So before we begin, we need to make sure that we have our right panels open. So we need to find some additional panels. Over on the right hand side, we have our properties and layers. They're going to do most of the work for us, but we do want to look at some other panels here. So under Window, I want you to go down to Color. Color is going to come in with Color Guide. Go to Window again, move down towards the bottom and look for Swatches. Swatches comes in with brushes and symbols, which we don't need for this lesson. And then we're going to go to Window and Gradient so that we have the Gradient panel. Now I'm going to put all of these together real quick. So I'm going to drag Gradient up here to Color. I'm going to grab Swatches and put it in the color. And then I'm just going to exit out of the brushes and symbols. I don't need that today. So I'm going to have this panel kind of floating over here. If you wanted to stick it to the side, you could. If you wanted to stick it to the bottom of your setup, you could. It's just kind of whatever works for you. It's completely up to what you want it to do. So let's start with the basics of color. There are two main types of color when it comes to dealing with graphics. There is RGB, which is red, green, and blue. And when you combine those colors together, you can get any color of the rainbow. This is an additive color setup. So think of it as starting with black. Think of this as digital. This is all digital elements. So your computer, your phone, your TV, when those things are turned off, they're black, right? So then you add colors to that and you get the whole color of the rainbow. The other color mode is CMYK. Now CMYK is primarily used for printing, but there are other applications for it as well. CMYK is a subtractive color mode, meaning it starts with white and then it subtracts colors out to end with black. So by combining these colors together, we get again the entire color of the rainbow. Go open any printer, look at the ink that they have. Those are the colors you will see. And everybody knows the black ink runs out first. So the basics of color are just that: red, green, blue, CMYK. Simple enough? Good. So let's talk about some of the things that relate to color. So opacity is the density of a thing, how well you can see through that thing. So if I click right here on my green square, and I'll go over to my properties panel and look there, I see the word opacity. And I can change the level of that opacity by kind of changing the percentage that I see through. Now when I change the green square, it just looks like I'm changing it to a lighter green, which is fair, but I just see through it. That's the difference. But what am I seeing through it to? Just the white background. Click on the red one and do the same. Drop that opacity, and all of a sudden you see how these two colors are mingling in the middle. Do the same thing with blue. Drop that opacity down, and again you'll see that difference. So opacity really is just about how much you can see through a thing. Go down to the magenta setup here, and this time instead of playing with the opacity, click where it says opacity. There are a number of ways to play with these colors when it comes to the opacity. So the main one I'm going to look at here is the blending modes. Go to where it says normal and change one of your blending modes to multiply. Nothing happens because it's not blending down to anything. Let's try that again on the white one. Click on opacity and change this again to multiply. You'll see how they blend together in the middle, creating that red, right? Try it again with the blue option. One more time for multiply. And you'll see how it goes through, blends the yellow with the blue to create green, right? So blending blends these two colors together equally, whereas the opacity does not necessarily. So let's go over to the right here, to the blending modes, and let's look at these in a little more detail. I want you to create a rectangle for me. I don't care what color it is, no fill though. Don't cover the whole area. In fact, let's make a few rectangles here, one for each corner. And I want to select these rectangles, go to opacity, and I want to adjust these blending modes in different ways. So soft light, I do that. I get basically a white on the outside and a light blue blending onto that gray. So I'm not blending to anything on the outside because it's just white, but I am blending to that gray area. Try that again. Click back on that, go to opacity. This time try something different. Color burn. Experiment with these 4 boxes and look at what's actually blending. Where it says darken, multiply, and color burn, those are going to darken. They're going to grab the darker things and bring them down. So that means I can see those on the outside. Now the second set, the lighting, the screen, the color dodge, those are going to lighten those areas. So it might lighten it so much I can't even see it, but it's not going to show up on white. The next set down is your kind of odd overlays. So you can overlay these. You'll see a little bit of something through these depending on which one you pick. And then we have our really odd ones, the difference, the exclusion. These create different types of looks depending on what you're on. So just experiment with them so you can kind of see what they do. All right. All right, so let's move over here to the right. Now the color match. This image of this woman has a multitude of colors on them. We are going to utilize our eyedropper tool to match the colors that I'm looking for. So these are the colors I'm looking for right here. Down here you have circles. You can click on these circles and we're going to use our eyedropper tool to find the matching color. So I'm looking for this bright magenta. I'll hit I on my keyboard with that circle selected. That grabs my eyedropper tool. And then I can click, hold, and drag around this image. Now I'll tell you it doesn't like to grab on the corners on the edge of this image, so you got to go in a little bit. But if you look over here in your color picker, you'll see that as you move, that color will change depending on what you're on. So kind of click around, hold, and find that color. I'm not looking for perfect here either, so just find something that's close and I'll be happy with it. So again, a dark purple. We're going to look for a yellowish color. This flowers in this hair has all kinds of colors in here. Feel free to kind of experiment with them. And again, I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for pretty close. So as you go through, see if you can find all of these colors that kind of match out close to what I'm looking for. All right, so again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you to see that you can match colors effectively using that eyedropper tool. Using colors that are similar throughout a design is a good way to create repetition, making things feel like they belong together. All right, let's move down to the gradients. Now these gray boxes you can click on, they'll allow you to select and you can alter the color of these boxes. Now to find your gradients just underneath your colors, you'll see this little box in the middle. And that'll allow you to change that color. Now you could also go to your fill in your properties panel and you'll see an option here for gradient as well. And that'll only come in once you click on the type of gradient you want. So there are a number of types of gradients out there. They change these pretty steadily. There used to be 6 of them, I think, at one point in Illustrator, but they've kind of narrowed it down. The first one here is a linear gradient, meaning it's going to go in a straight line. You see it's going in a straight line from white to black. Hit G on your keyboard. That'll get your gradient tool. Now you see the actual gradient here on the line. I can double click on any of these points and I can change the color of my gradient any way I want. So change the colors of your gradient. If you hover your mouse just underneath the line, you'll get this little white plus symbol. Let me zoom in. If I click there, it'll create a new point and I can add a new color to the gradient. There are these little diamond shapes, and this is about where it starts to fade, where the middle of that fade is. So you can adjust that around a little bit and kind of see what it does. If you don't like this color and you want to get rid of it, click on it, hold, and just drag straight down, and that'll get rid of it. So you can have as many or as few as you want. Now the standard gradient is going to go from left to right, but it doesn't have to. If I click anywhere, and I can click way over here, it'll create that gradient in a different way, in a different angle. So try a different angle with that, see what you come up with. Now let's go over to this one. I'm going to select this shape, and instead of going to my gradient panel or my gradient buttons, I'm just going to hit I, and I'm going to select the gradient over here. You see it brings it right over. Good. So I can adjust this gradient the same way. So give me two different colors. In fact, let's go for 3 colors on this one. So make an additional anchor point, color point, and let's change that color. Now currently it's going in a linear fashion. Now I can't change it to radial here. So I need to go to my gradient panel, and the second option in here is a radial gradient. The radial gradient goes out from the middle in a circular fashion, but you can still choose where it does that. So if it starts at the top and works its way down, or if it starts in the middle and goes out from there. Experiment with it, come up with a gradient that you like in that shape. Let's move over. Now the freeform. The freeform gradient is probably everybody's favorite gradient. When you click on this in your gradient panel, you can click on the third option for type of gradient, and it'll create a freeform gradient for you. And I'll zoom in. These points right here allow you to double click and alter these colors to be whatever you want these corner pieces to be. Now you can adjust your colors, but better than that, you can adjust where that color is. So if I want that color in a different spot to fade differently, I can do that. Better, this little circle around here allows me to show how much I want it to fade or how little I want it to fade. So I can experiment with that and come up with a number of looks. Notice when I'm not on one of those circles, I get a circle with a plus symbol. What do you think that means? I can make more of these. So you can have as many or as few of these as you would like in order to customize your gradient however you would like. So once you've made that one, I want you to experiment on the custom right here and make a different type of gradient, whatever gradient you want to pick, whether it be linear. Grab about 5-6 colors on whatever you're doing. So experiment. Once done, let's move over to the right. Now, how can we use these gradients to create custom vector designs? We're going to do this to build a very simple animated character here. Nothing complicated. All we're going to use are circles along the way to make this shape. So I'm going to hit L on my keyboard. That's going to get my circle tool. And I'm going to create a basic circle right here in the middle. I want it to be a big circle covering a good area here. So once I've got the shape where I want it to be, I want to create a gradient on it. And I'll just click on the gradient button down here to get it. It'll give me my last default button, which is this gradient that I have here. Now I want to change this from 3 colors to 2 colors. So I'm going to grab that middle one and just drag down. I want my left anchor point to be white. So I'm going to go to pure white. And I want my right anchor point to go to 100% black, like that. That's the look I'm going for. Now once I have that, I want to increase this gradient. So I'm going to grab this bottom bar right here, this bottom point of this gradient, and I'm going to stretch it out, way out. I'm going to make it huge, okay? What I should see is what's called a subtle corporate gradient. I can see white in the center, but it goes out to a very light gray. So that's what I'm looking for. Now I'm going to adjust this using my selection tools, specifically my direct selection tool. So A is the shortcut for that. I'm going to click on this top anchor point and I'm going to go down a little ways, flattening that out. I'll do the same thing with the bottom one, dragging that up just a little bit and flattening it out. I'm also going to make this bottom handlebar a little further to the left and a little further to the right. So I'm grabbing on that handlebar, holding shift and dragging them out. So that gives me the basic shape of the head that I'm going to create. Next, I'm going to get my same ellipse tool and I'm going to make another circle shape right up here. And we're going to make some ears for them. So I'm going to start with this same gradient, but I'm going to hit G on my keyboard to get my gradient again. And this time I'm going to create a 70% black middle. So you can see the K right here, 70%. And it's going to be 100% black at the edge. But this time I want to bring that gradient back up. I want to shrink it down a little bit. Not exactly to the edge, but close. So it kind of looks like that. Good. Once I have this, I've got all the gradients I need. I'll just duplicate these for the most part. There's only one that's going to alter. So if you've got these two shapes and these two gradients are right, the rest of this comes down to a lot of copying and pasting. So I'm going to hold Option and I'm going to duplicate this ear. I'm going to shrink this ear down holding Shift. and put it in the middle. So that gives me my first little ear. If I want to make it a little smaller, I certainly can. There we go. So I'm going to select both of these. And over on the right, I'm going to look for my alignment options. I want to align this in the center vertically and horizontally. Make sure it fits right. Good. Now I'm going to put that ear into place right here. I'm going to duplicate it and put another one over on the right hand side so that I've got some nice little ears there. Good. Now I'm going to grab one of those ears, both shapes, hold Alt or Option, and move that down to the face. This is going to be the background for my eye, so I need to do a few things to this to make sure this is successful. First, I'm going to click on the background shape. The actual shape of the head might create issues for me, so I'm going to grab it, I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to hit Lock Selection. Control or Command 2 is the shortcut for that. Good. I'm going to make that center circle a little bit bigger on this eye because I'm going to need a little bit of space. And then I'm going to hit A with that bigger circle selected. Let me zoom in. Hit A, and I'm going to click on this top anchor point. And I'm going to drag it off to the right a little bit and up. I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom, just in reverse, going down and to the left a little bit. So that'll give me this basic shape that is going to be the back part of our eye. Good. Now this is going to be our dark area around the eye. We need to start copying and pasting a few different times to create what we need here. So I'm going to hit Command C, and then I'm going to add a new button in here. I'm going to hit Shift, Command, or Control V as in Victor. You won't see it copy and paste. But what just happened is it made a new version of that right on top of the old one. So it copied it and pasted it in place. I want to shrink this down just a little bit, leaving just a little bit of a dark edge around the outside. And this gradient here, I want to be the same as the face. So I'll hit I on my keyboard and I'll click on this face right here to get that gradient. I'll hit G to get my gradient bar here, and I'll extend that out. This is going to be the white of my eye. So it should be white in the middle, going to a slight gray around the outside, getting it that like ball shape. Now, when I've got that, I'm going to copy this again. Shift Command V as in Victor to paste it again. And I'm going to shrink this down. This is going to be the actual color of the eye. And when I hit G on this, I'm going to notice it goes white to black. But instead of black here, I want to change the color of this eye to be something different. Now you can pick whatever color you want your eye to be. You want a blue eye, pick a blue eye. You want a red eye, that can be an evil little teddy bear. Whatever floats your boat. I'm going to go to kind of a darker blue color so that I can see it fairly well. Good. Then I'm going to zoom back in and I'm going to shrink that gradient down a ways, grabbing that little bar and dragging that in. So now I'm just going to make a couple of extra little circles here, and I can copy and paste this if I want to, but I'm going to make a little black area, so a black circle, and I'm going to line that up in the middle. That's going to be the pupil of that eye. You can kind of see it'll pop and say center when you're in the right spot. I'll duplicate that up, shrink that down, and turn that white. And that's going to be the little glint in the eye to make it sparkle just a little bit, all right? Pretty cool? Good, so that's our eye. So I look at this and I see I need the eye to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to grab all the shapes of the eye and I'm going to make them just a little bit bigger here. Good. So I need another version of this eye off on the right hand side, and I don't want to have to recreate the eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate and flip it. So Object, Transform, I'm going to look for Reflect. Now I don't just want to reflect it vertically, I also want to copy it. So I'll hit the copy option right there, and it'll make a second eye for me. I can drag right over to the side. Good. Drag this eye, make them a little more even. See my ears a little off. I'll even him up. And there we go. So this is how we get our basic look of the eyes. Not complicated, all done with circles and gradients. Next, we're going to make the nose and the mouth, and we're going to do this in kind of a similar but different way. So I want you to make me a ellipse that looks about like that. So that's just the elliptical tool. L is the shortcut. I'm going to click with my white arrow, direct selection tool, on the top anchor point here. And let me zoom in. On the top anchor point here, I'm going to hold shift and click on the bottom anchor point. And then I'm just going to drag both of those down a little bit. Kind of looks like a goofy mouth, but this is actually going to be our nose. Now I'm going to hit L again, and I'm going to make 2 circles. I'm only going to make one, but I'm going to duplicate that circle so that it looks like this. What I'm really looking for is this crescent shape right here, this kind of half moon looking shape right there. I'm going to select both of these shapes, so have them both selected. I'm going to look back at my Pathfinder, specifically at the one that says minus front again. When I click minus front, it's going to take everything that's on top and cut it through the bottom, leaving me with just this crescent shape, which is good. I'm going to put this into place right underneath that nose. I'm going to duplicate this one the same way. Object, transform, reflect, hit copy, and I'm going to line them up. Last touch, I'm going to grab all 3 of these elements, the 2 of the mouth and the nose, and I'm going to put them together, because if you look carefully, they all have their own gradients, but I want them all to be one gradient because they're one shape. When I put them together, I get one gradient, just like that. Pretty cool. So there's a lot you can do with very basic colors and very basic shapes. If this was a brown background, we'd have a brown bear. If I made that background green with no ears, he would look like a bullfrog. You can do a lot of different things with this, and this is a very simple way to play. But colors go a long way in what you are doing. So we didn't look terribly at the color panel up here, but anytime you have a shape selected, you can alter these colors up here to kind of do what you want them to do. Swatches are places where you can go to save colors. So if I really like this color of purple right here, I can double click on it and I can add it to my color swatches, or I can hit the little plus sign down here to add it to my color swatches. This allows me to come back to it and use it over and over again if that's what I want. So there's a lot that can be done with these programs, and it's all about experimentation. You have to learn to play with it. So what did we cover today? We looked at the difference between RGB and CMYK. We looked at the difference between opacity and blending modes and what you can do with each one. We looked at our eyedropper tool and how it can be used to sample colors from different locations. We played around with our different types of gradients, and we looked at how to make custom gradients. And then we put it all together in this little design on the right, making our own custom animated character, dealing with gradients and basic shapes. Again, there's a lot that can be done with the simple stuff. So play around with the simple stuff and see what you can create easily. So that's your daily dose of design. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video or subscribe to the channel. That helps me and helps you build your creative toolbox. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.